to extend the gardening season, especially up here in north? Well, one way is to create an autumn bed, and that is what I've tried to do here. This is in the middle of its second season, and as you can tell, it's not looking 100%. So in this video I thought I'll tell you a bit about the thinking behind this bed. I'll go through a great variety of really good late blooming perennials, and then I'll try to reason my way around what has worked well and what hasn't worked well and what I'm thinking of doing about it. So, welcome. This is a great position for a bed like this. It's on the western side of the house, close to the warm wooden shed wall, and all of these perennials really love their sun, and most of them need it to get going. As you can see, the asters have still to flower. That is despite the fact that we've had a long, very hot and dry summer. But they obviously need even more sun. So the bed gets sun from about 11 o'clock and all the way up until 8-9 in the evening in high summer. Full sun, definitely. Soil in our garden is pretty sandy. Of course, I've amended the soil quite a lot, but still it's a pretty dry and extremely well draining position. Even though these perennials are also quite good at handling droughts, they still need watering regularly. So the staple of any autumn bed must be the Echinaceas. These are the Magnus variety, and also the Rudbeckias, close cousin, black-eyed Susans. The Echinaceas are also called coneflowers. Gaillardias, or blanket flowers, I really like those. As I said, asters, they start blooming very late, but then they bloom all the way into October, even up here in the north. Garden phlox, Achillea, of course. I'll come back and I will talk a bit more about Achillea. I really love Achillea, but it has its issues, I think. Now, you can't see, but behind here are sweet williams, or Dianthus barbatus. Back here we have some heleniums, some sneezeweed. They haven't really flowered yet, and I'm not sure why, but they're there. So, and then there are some other stuff that I've put in just as an afterthought. But those were the definite staples. And also, as you can see, I have in the background some tiger lilies. Now, they are beautiful, but they're hard to stake up. And of course, I've tried to work with heights here. So the plan was, of course, to have the highest plants at the back and the lowest plants at the top. But some amount of chaos has crept into this bed by now, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And just for completeness sake, back here is an iris, a very, very old iris. It still flowers beautifully, but it's done for the season. If I understand it correctly, irises aren't that long-lived. This iris has been here for at least 50 years, but it's not actually the same iris because it rejuvenates itself, if I've understood it correctly. And back here we have a shrub. I kind of organized this bed around this shrub. It's delphinium. Now, I've gotten tired of delphiniums, and I'll tell you a bit more about that as well. So I'm thinking of removing that. It doesn't really do its job properly, I think. Now, let's walk through the bed and on to what could be considered a continuation of the bed. This bed I usually call the kitchen bed because it's located below the kitchen windows. So more flowers of the same kind. And here are some gazanias. They look a bit crappy right now, but that's just because the sun is in the clouds. As soon as the sun comes down, they really shine. I will make another little garden tour August video and show you around, just a quick update. But now we're heading to the greenhouse, where I thought I'd show you how I planned this bed from the start. So let's sit down here. Let's go into the greenhouse and I'll show you my my initial designs. So this was my original plan. Now this is actually the first mistake I did, namely to design this bed entirely on paper without having dug out any beds or borders before. So this was about 2 years ago. I hadn't even started working on the garden yet. Mistake number one and recommendation number one is don't just design on paper, design on spot and let it take time. And actually this is what I'm doing now. I'm still designing, I'm redesigning according to what actually happens in the ground. So, but anyway, about 10 feet wide, 5 feet deep. I did look online for plants which I told you about that would fit the bill. And I also looked at the height, of course, because I wanted taller plants in the background and shorter plants in the front, which is a common design technique, which I varied a bit. Mixed results. Actually, I think in this case it would have been better to just stick to a strict regimen of letting the heights decide the plant, the placement of the plants. And anyway, I also looked, as you can see here, at the recommended center-to-center distance for planting. If I had just put in these plants and none other, this would probably be okay. But as I said before, I've tucked in a lot of other stuff along the way and also expanded the border somewhat. So I've kind of created a bit of chaos for myself. Then I actually dug the bed out and I amended the soil. And then I divided it up into 3x10s as a grid. This shrub was there from the start, the delphinium that I don't like, and the old iris. And then this was my scheme. Echinaceas up to 3 feet tall in the back, together with the tiger lilies up to 5 feet tall. Then in the middle, as you can see, I moved down some echinaceas. I shouldn't have done that, I think. But then in the middle row, there are Rudbeckias about 2 feet, according to my information, and Achillea about also 2 feet. And then in the front row, mainly asters and phlox, which were supposed to be around 18 inches or so. Now, some asters are lower and some are markedly taller. I think I have different varieties. And also the phlox is definitely taller than 2 feet. But anyway, this was what I put in the ground. And I did this in, let's say, August last year. And it looked really, really nice, of course, because everything bloomed at the same time, because I bought things ready from the nursery. This year, however, things have been different, and I'll tell you a bit more about that. So, problem or lesson or recommendation number 2 is this. The bed is actually quite deep, especially considering that we have a wall on one side, so it's only accessible from the front. And since I put in, well, it was pretty crowded initially, according to the plan that I just showed you. But then, as I said, I expanded it with a semicircle in the front, and I put in a lot of extra stuff, which means that you can't really reach. And then you have the differing heights, and so the result is that it's very hard to reach in order to cut back stuff when you need to. So that's one problem. Issue number 3. Differing flowering times. As I told you before, the asters they just started to bud up, at least this taller variety. This lower one has hardly budded up yet. At the same time, most of the Achillea is spent. I've saved this because it still has some color in it, and also just in order to show you, but I've cut back a lot of Achillea all around here. And because Achillea, one of the drawbacks I love Achillea, but one of the drawbacks with Achillea is that it's pretty tall and scrawny. It needs support. When it starts to get spent, it doesn't look good at all. And it's pretty hard to cut back to make it look neat. That's actually problem number 4. The fact that both the Achillea and several of the other plants, they are in need of support. They have a tendency to flop. I put up these supports. I don't like to use them, these metal supports. Things flop and lean on top of each other, and it doesn't look nice. So I'm not quite sure how to solve that. Also, the phlox, same problem. It flowers at different times. Even the different varieties of phlox and the different plants, the same variety of phlox. Now there are some pink phlox left. I've had quite a lot of white phlox as well, and much more of it. And they never seem, this year at least, they don't seem to really have a synchronized flowering time. They flower, some stalks flower and the other stalks look spent, and it's hard to get them to look nice and tidy, I think. Yeah, so that's the 3rd and 4th issue. I won't bore you with going through every other kind of plant that I've tried to stuff in here. I've already started thinking about how to edit this bed. I just want to mention one positive thing, apart from the location that I mentioned before. And that is the explosion of color that you get here. Now, right now, we have purple, yellow, reds, pinks, lilacs. Not much blue though, because the asters are not here, and the salvias are spent. And the yarrows, what's left are some pale pinks and terracotta yellow. But Achillea come in a variety of colors, and I've had most of them here. I really like them. So I had this paprika, very clear red, and several other colors as well. Sometimes you hear people talking about the color wheel and contrasting colors and stuff, but I think that in this case the chaos actually works. Every kind of color, and also colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. They produce a kind of a joyous, exuberant effect, so that's nice. I've put off filming this video for several weeks because I've been waiting for the right moment, but in the end I realized that there will be no right moment, and in the meantime many of the nice varieties that I have here have been spent, so you only see a selection of plants in bloom right now. I will start the editing by removing the delphinium. That will be the 6th little reflection or lesson in this bed. This is one of 4 delphiniums I have in the garden right now. They were the very first things that I bought because I thought they looked really nice in pictures. Large blooming shrubs full of white flowers, nice smell and everything. But this is the 3rd year that I have them, and I have them in different locations, and I've taken care of them as best I can, but they never look good, and they attract a lot of aphids and other stuff. So the foliage doesn't look good. The flowers don't really look that good either. You have to cut them back, and then you lose the flowers for next season. And as I said, they really attract pests. They look just scrappy, so I will remove them. Lesson number 7 though is about delphiniums, and this is mostly for the Swedish audience. In Sweden, delphiniums are called jasmine. Now, many people, especially in Sweden, mistake them for jasmines, which in Swedish is called jasmine. As you can tell, it's not much difference in name. Furthermore, they look pretty similar, and the flowers even have a similar scent. So many Swedes, is my impression at least, believe that delphiniums and jasmines are the same thing, which they're most certainly not. Jasmines are not viable even in the south of Sweden. We can't grow them. A little bit of extra knowledge there. So, thanks for watching. Please watch my next video, which will be a short autumn tour of the entire garden. Welcome back.